All right, welcome back to Moss. This is the map of open source science as it currently stands. I got two stories I want to tell for you today. One is going to be from the perspective of a user trying to find impactful, quote unquote, impactful open source research software. Maybe they're a funder or an organization that wants to support a package or project. And the other is going to be from the perspective of a researcher who's looking for an organization to support their package specifically. But first, before we jump into those stories, I wanted to show you how the entire map is coming along. As you can see, it's grown quite a bit. You've got the NumFocus ecosystem in here where all the connections are right now. This is just the section that we've really mapped. You can see NumFocus right there. The green dots are all people, and we'll be removing those shortly just so I don't break my computer moving forward. Everything out here around the NumFocus ecosystem and this sort of Oort cloud of packages and projects are packages and projects. And right now we have every connection setting essentially turned on. These other ones are essentially can't use them right now, but we're continuing to experiment with this proof of concept, obviously. And before I begin anything, I'm going to remind everyone this is a project you are very welcome to come participate in and contribute to. It's a very fun project to work on. We're mapping the open source research software ecosystem, which is very interesting to map. But you can also see in this Oort cloud there are connections within the cloud itself, which I think is very, very interesting. And you can see there are sort of these uh, outer orbit, let's call them, projects and packages that connect the NumFocus ecosystem to its Oort cloud. And something that I think is going to be very interesting as we continue to develop mapping organizations is which of these packages and projects are connected to some other organization. And then through that organization are connected to the NumFocus ecosystem, or through a person that's affiliated with that organization connected to the NumFocus ecosystem. Or maybe there's a paper that's affiliated with that organization or a person with that organization that connects them to the NumFocus ecosystem. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that connection between organizations and their ecosystems is going to be very illuminating, I think, in terms of how the open source research software ecosystem operates. Another thing that I think is going to be incredibly fascinating as we continue to map organizations is which of these packages don't belong to any other organization, aren't really affiliated with any central organization, are more standalone open source research software projects and packages that purely are supported by the people behind them, don't have a fiscal sponsor, aren't supported by any grants or funding, anything like that, don't belong to a university, were never incubated in a university. Which of them are truly rogue objects in the ecosystem, if we want to continue that space metaphor. But for now, we're going to explore papers and organizations. So let's get to it. And like I said, in order to do that, I'm going to remove people. All the green circles are peoples for those who aren't familiar with this map yet. And the reason I'm removing them is because, well, Kumu, the tool that we're using to map this, is incredibly awesome. It is a fantastic tool. The team behind it is amazing. It does start to run into limitations once you add the number of nodes that we add on this map. We're looking at well over 10,000 nodes. If I don't know how we would measure this at this point, but it's probably over 50,000 connections we've made. So there's a lot going on here. Kumu struggles to visualize that, and it's largely dependent on your machine that you're using to view the map as well. And my machine is not the best map. So I'm going to remove people. I am also going to remove all the connections that we were just looking at, and this will take some time. I will speed this up in editing. And there we go. We were presented with the familiar amorphous blob of the open source research software ecosystem. I'm going to throw names on here. You won't be able to see any until I zoom in, but they will be used later. And now let's begin our first story. And let's say that I am an organization looking for, I'm a user, let's say, looking for impactful open source research software. And this user could be an organization, it could be a funder or some institution or some supporter in some way. And I'm looking for open source research software to support. And I, as the user, am going to define impactful as produces research papers, is cited by many research papers. And I want to remind everyone that this map, MOSS itself, is not supposed to be a prescriptive map. It is supposed to be composable and interactive and up to the user. So the user should come into this map and have a purpose and sort of input their purpose and then be guided along their journey. The map should change based on what their purpose is. So I can choose to define what quote unquote impact is however way I want, and then the map will change to meet that definition. But that is my definition. The number of papers that cite a package or project is the determiner of whether or not that package or project is impactful. So I've input that into the map, and I'm going to map the projects to their papers to projects and packages. And lo and behold, some connections appear, and I'll zoom in and see what we got here. All right, looks like we've got some papers, and it looks like we have some different sized circles. It just so happens that when the user input their definition of impact, the circle size changed to meet that impact. So I can immediately see that based on the information in the map right now, SunPy is the project that is cited by the most papers. It is the most impactful project on the map based on the definition I've given it. I can see all the other projects here, and let's see the least impactful one. It looks to be YT, again, based on this entirely made up scenario and the limited information we put in the map. YT seems to be the least impactful project. My job is done. So let's continue. Let's say I'm just a curious organization at this point. You know, I've chosen that I'm going to support SunPy because it seems like it produces a lot of papers, and I like the people who give me money like to see papers produced. So that's the project I'm going to support. But I'm also just curious, and I want to see who the people are behind these papers. So let's map that. Maybe I'm going to be able to, maybe my definition of impact, rather, is determinant on whether or not the papers that come out of a package are themselves created by impactful people. Chew on that for a bit. And I will, of course, have to have a definition for what impactful people are in that scenario, but that's well out of the scope of this little demo here. So if we look down here, we can see the paper. I think we've got information here for the paper. We've got the abstract, we've got the authors, the journal. We can see the packages that it cites, and we can see the publication date. Of course, we can update this with whatever we want. And we can see here on the map the people. And what might be very interesting as we continue to develop this, and I know this doesn't exist right now on the map because I've tried to find it, is if we find people who are both producers of research and producers of research software. Because, and this is a little tangent here, but the Open Source Science Initiative out of KnownFocus, our goal is to connect the users of open source research softwares with the developers and maintainers of the open source research software. We want to make it easier for researchers to find the tools they want to use. We want to make it easier for funders and supporting organizations to find the tools to fund and support, to find gaps in the ecosystem, maybe find places where there are no tools and there should be tools. We want to make it so that researchers don't end up developing a tool that like mostly already exists. Maybe they should just go to that package's community and say, hey, I want to change this a little bit. Can your package do this? And someone will say, yeah, give me a little bit and help me find a grant, and we'll do it for you, so that the researcher can research, and those who want to build open source research software can build open source research software. The idea here is that we can accelerate research if researchers don't need to develop software with their grant and their time, and we can really focus open source research software into the needs of the researcher if we are having a constant channel of communication about what is needed in a field as the field develops and what is capable in the research software ecosystem. End of tangent. Let's go back to our story. So I've seen the people that are connected to this paper. Now I'm curious what organizations are funding this research, just because I'm curious. Let's not even bring impact into this. So here we go. We can see a couple orgs that we've started to map. This paper, stop moving, is connected, here we go, to this organization. This was a program that I don't think exists anymore. It's replaced by something else, but the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program produced this paper. How cool is that? And this paper cites SunPy. How neat is that? So this organization, through this paper, is connected to SunPy. I don't know. There's a lot that can come out of that as we continue to build this out. And here we go. We've got UKRI here has supported this paper. This is interesting because I know for a fact that UKRI, I think I know for a fact, supports open source research software as well. So as we continue to map out these boards, we'll be able to see which organizations are producing both research and research software. And we'll also be able to see whether or not an organization that does that, that fills those requirements, is supporting the open source research software that is used by the research that it supports. And that will be very interesting. And I think a lot of organizations would love to see that. So that's the end of this user story, but really just the beginning of what's possible as we continue to develop uh, paper mapping, if you will. So let's zoom back out. There's the whole map again. Let's remove all the connections that we used for that story. And let's move on to our next story. Our next story, I will be wearing the hat of a researcher who has developed a visualization tool in Python. And I think it's an amazing package, an amazing tool that's going to be useful to researchers around the world. And I want to find an organization that will help me bring my tool to the masses, help me develop it a little further, maybe develop a UI, maybe help develop some documentation, and really take it to the next level. So I want to find an organization that specifically supports visualization tools in Python. And I'm a researcher. I don't necessarily belong to the open source research software ecosystem. This is my understanding of that ecosystem. It's just a bunch of things that exist. I know it exists. I know it's massive. I know there's something there for me. If only I could traverse this wide space. So I come to this map and I input my needs, and then I look at what is possible to map. And it looks like it is possible. Where is it? To map projects and packages to their sustaining and parent organizations. That's what I'm looking for. I need a sustaining or parent organization. Okay, I'm still a little confused. Not a lot. I saw something. Okay, all right. So I'm zooming in now. I can see some connections. I know that the pink are organizations. And it looks like Enthos, Chaco, Maya. Okay. I'm starting to see what's going on here. This isn't really helpful. This is just, all right. Maybe there's something else on the map that can help me find what I need. Looks like I can map packages and projects to their subfield. And I know by looking at the ontology before I started using the map that visualization is in fact a subfield in this mapping. So if I can find which of those orgs are supporting software that is used in visualization, I will hopefully be able to find an organization that can support my visualization tool. There we go. I can see visualization as a subfield, and you've got data science over here. We've got some more machine learning, computing, simulation of modeling, numerical analysis, but I'm really mostly interested in visualization. I can see all these packages are visualizers, visualization tools, and I can see all these organizations are organizations that support visualization packages. So this is as far as the map currently goes, but as we map more and more packages that are supported by these organizations, maybe I can find an organization that supports many packages, and I could infer from that that organization is one that seeks to support and sustain open source research software, and I can reach out to them and see if they want to help. It's similar to going down the fiscal sponsor route, but a little more focused on my exact subfield, my exact use case for my package. And something that's very interesting to me, taking off my user hat here, is one of the organizations that we found from PyVis, which is what we used to map the visualization subfield, is Spotify. Spotify has supported open source visualization software in the form of Chartify. Just interesting to me. As we map this, there's a lot of, so it seems to be at least, a lot of organizations that you wouldn't really imagine, you don't know, support the open source ecosystem. And that's one of the very exciting things about mapping organizations here. And this is why we want support from organizations specifically to map their little ecosystem, what projects do organizations support in the open source research ecosystem? All right, so that is basically it. That's what I wanted to show you. Let's undo these connections, go back to the blob that we're all presented with when we enter the open source research software space. And I will invite you once more to join us in development of this map. It is a very, very fun project to work on. It is probably one of the most fun projects I've worked on because you get to explore this vast space and you get to see things emerge as you build these connections, which is just incredibly satisfying. So if you want to get involved, reach out to me, Reindexing Project, at john@numfocus.org. We have working sessions once per week. We have interest group calls once per month. You're welcome to join both. Just do reach out and get involved in building, support the project in some way or another, or just have a discussion about what is being built and maybe how we could build it one way or another, which direction we might want to take. So that's all. Thank you for your time.